Hi guys, I'm Shmee, hello and welcome back to the channel where today we're going to be joined at the Shmuseum by a friend of mine who has never previously been on the channel. We're catching up with JayEmm and he's coming down with his Ferrari F12 Berlinetta. Now we might be short of my V12 Ferrari at the moment, the Lusso is out at service. We do have the SF90 and we have a V12 in the form of the DBS, but the F12 is an icon. It is a lovely car. We're going to be heading out for a drive with it, but also JayEmm has a bit of a background with Lotus, so I'm looking forward to getting his opinion on the luminous orange Elise. We'll touch on that a little bit later on. Anyway, it's going to be great to catch up. I cannot wait to go for a drive. It is a lovely day to enjoy a Ferrari F12 and he should be here in not all that long. A quick update then, the Elise is here at the moment, the DBS is back, it doesn't have a front plate because it's going to be going to Topaz. Given it's just been painted, we will transport it over to get paint protection film to protect the lovely new midnight blue paintwork, and then we'll get the plate back on it. But I think JayEmm is quite interested also to talk about cars like the Vantage Roadster, like the Renault Clio, so those are going to be over on his channel in the near future. I'm a little bit sad that so many of the cars are missing at the moment, but I've got some big plans ahead. Of course, at this stage, I'm about to hop over the ocean towards North America. We have the Gumball 3000, we have plenty more going on in Canada and the Northeast, and then down in Florida, and then more beyond that as well. So lots will have changed here by the time I get back, which will be with Tom and Brad over on the Shmuseum channel. I think for now, we just need to hold tight another minute or two, then we'll have the F12 arriving, and it's going to sound amazing. I can't wait. Welcome, welcome. Welcome.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you here. Good to have F12 TOO here.
Yes, indeedy.
Your lovely F12 Berlinetta. So, if I'm not mistaken, you've had this now for a couple of months.
Yeah, I picked it up in February, end of February.
And you've driven it how many miles?
5,000.
5,000 miles in about 2.5 months at this point in a V12 Ferrari.
Yes.
And not your first V12 Ferrari, because you also...
No, I've got the 550 Maranello as well.
Which is super cool. 550, F12, and you had a 430.
Yep.
So safe to say you like Ferraris?
I do like Ferraris. I don't like all Ferraris. In fact, I'd say there are probably more Ferraris I don't like than I do like, but the ones that I like, I really like. And clearly, to do 5,000 miles already in a car like this is a big commitment, I think it's safe to say. Yeah, I think it's a combination of, part of it was the honeymoon period. You know what it's like? You got the new car, and I use it for all those journeys where I definitely shouldn't be using it. Like the number of loaves of bread and, pints of milk this thing went and got was far too many. Boring motorway trips, and I was like, no, this is stupid. £1.80 a litre for fuel. I was like, stop that. But then I kind of have this thing with my cars now where any of the really big cars, the GT Focus cars in particular, I kind of christen them by taking them up to Scotland.
Yep.
And I probably did about 2,500 miles in about 2 weeks doing that.
And what a journey and what a video.
Yeah.
Literally, I think every petrol head would feel the same way about this. That was kind of like the automotive dream. Yeah. Taking a car like this with a story like that to a venue and roads like those. Yeah. And it's where something like this comes alive because you can drive it a little bit more, especially compared to around here near London. It is a car that you really do need the right environment for it to shine. I've let a few people drive it, and the thing is, there are other cars, there's lots of cars in here where, you get half an hour behind the wheel on a good road, like you've got it. You know what that car's all about, what it can do. Stuff like this is just not that way. It takes time to kind of learn it and adapt to it. I mean, I remember when the F12s came out, over 700 horsepower, rear driven. It was kind of like a leap ahead.
Yes. To
anything else on the market at that time. To have the amount of power and performance that this offers, so, dare I say it, readily available. And it's something I talk about now with the SF90, is that obviously needing the means and the funds to purchase it, but technically anybody can walk into a Ferrari dealer and buy a 1,000 horsepower car.
Yeah, as long as you've got money, you can have one. Yeah.
It's like, is it right that that is available to anybody? But this was, I think, the first car of that. This was the first car of anything that anybody released that really stepped it ahead. And you've got Rosso Corsa over Crema, and you've got to come and have a quick look.
Not by design, actually, because the 550 is already Rosso Corsa with the Crema interior, and so this really was more of a happy accident, and I kind of thought, actually, not all modern Ferraris look so good in this colour, but this one does.
Definitely.
Rosso Corsa suits it well.
So I've never had a red Ferrari. Your 550 is red.
My 550 is red.
All of my Ferraris have been blue. Got a blue thing going on.
I would have loved a blue one. I would have preferred the 550 in blue. I would have preferred this in blue.
Really?
But it just happens that both of them suited the color, and I bought the car rather than necessarily the spec. Also, to be honest, with 550, like, I don't think when my 550 was made, the options list actually existed, or it was thereabouts. The first few years of 550, there was no options.
Really? So they were all kind of the same spec?
So my 550, I believe there are no options. It's literally you chose your color and you chose your interior. Then later, maybe around the time mine was introduced, you could have stuff like the carbon bucket seats, a bit of carbon in the interior, the leather shelf at the back, that sort of stuff. Honestly, if you ticked like every single option box on a 550, it's about 15 or 20 grand.
Interesting. Like, whereas a modern Ferrari, as you probably know, you end up with a list about this long.
The options list, I think, on the press Lusso was nearly the same as the asking price of the 550 when new.
That's ridiculous.
550 was 149.
So I had a very similar kind of experience to this when speccing the SF90, because I actually specced the SF90 in the same week that I specced my Emira.
Yep.
So my Emira is a first edition, fully loaded. It's just shy of 80 grand. The options on this are just over 80 grand.
I had the same experience. When I bought my Evora, I went to the dealer and I thought, you know what, let's buy one new, because the 400 was basically only available new. And I said, humour me here, let's spec a car. Being used to, the Porsche thing and the Ferrari thing, but we're going to be here for an hour or two. And the guy gets out this, sort of A4 sheet of paper, then folds it in half because it's blank anyway. And he's like, right, what colour do you want outside? Colour do you want inside? Do you want the posh wheels or not? And then I think it was like, do you want cruise control?
Yeah,
and that's about it.
That's about it.
5 options, and that was loaded.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing. Like, when it comes to these cars, and with a Ferrari, it's kind of unanimously known on the modern cars that you need to spec it to a certain level if you want your car to have value and to be, in the system, etc., etc. But yeah, more money and options on this than the whole of my Emira, to buy the Emira.
Yeah.
Which is like mind-boggling. So talking Lotus, because you obviously started your channel big time with Lotus.
Absolutely,
cars. You've done lots with them over the years. What do you think of that?
I think the colour is amazing. I absolutely love it. And we were talking off camera about whether this is actually a broadcast legal colour, and to be honest, I'm sure in some states it is just a flat-out illegal colour anyway. I've always had a soft spot for the Elise. I've had a soft spot for nearly all Lotus, to be honest. But the 250 Cup, I think it's one of those cars, you look at it and you think it's a really stripped out, hardcore, aggressive track monster, but actually, these are some of the nicest road cars you'll ever experience. Like, you get the roof off and just any half-decent road, anywhere, there is no finer way to enjoy this car.
And that's pretty much what I've experienced out of it so far. I thought it was going to be really brutal, but it's turned out to actually be quite pleasant to drive. It's quite a nice car to drive. The seats are a little bit diggy for me.
Yes.
My lower back is a bit at the end of it.
Yeah, I used to get it in the thigh.
Yeah. But that's always something with these kind of cars, isn't it? They vary, you get used to. Some things work well, some things don't. F12 TOO is a good plate as well, by the way, I have to say.
Yeah.
It's very suitable.
I put that on there. I'll confess, it's basically a dad joke. I'm not a dad, but I've got a young niece and nephew, so I thought I'd get some practice in while I can. I wanted to put a private plate on there. I have private plates for all the cars. The 550 is on V99 Yum in honor of its significant thirst. Which, to be fair, this deserves to wear more. The 430 has got Tifoso on it, and then I thought, what do I put on this? And I thought, now I've got 3 Ferraris. People are going to go, have you got an F12 TOO? And I was like, can I get F12 TOO for it? And I was like, yes, I can. So I was like,
done.
Yep. And I'm surprised at how few people have said to me, you Wally, that is an awful plate. But I'm like, it's me.
It's fun. I like it. I like it, and I like also that it's not. You have different plates. You can have really special, really quite expensive things, like on the Lotus, for example. But it's always fun when you find something good that is much more reasonably priced than that.
Oh, I'm a miser. I will go on the DVLA website for about 3 days trying to find like the combination that works really, really well. And I'm like, okay, what works, what doesn't? And I'm like, okay, that works. And I'm like, yep. And to be honest, the main reason I started putting them on is because I just like smaller plates at the front.
Yes, they look nicer.
And I don't want to do the illegal plate thing. I was like, let's just get a smaller plate, smaller reg, done.
So I became a victim of that myself. I went with my long plates, and they're not very pretty on the front of the cars, like on the STO and the Ford GT, having to have the kind of full plate stuck across the front. But hey,
Yeah, but it's an institution now. The Shmee plates are an institution. I see the Shmee plates in the same way as, and you probably get this a little bit, because we're basically just car geeks at heart. I love that I have now driven some of, the famous plates.
Oh, I know exactly.
Like Ferrari,
what
like the V12 FNE, V8 FNE, Porsche like the 911 Hull, A911 and stuff like that. And I'm like, that's famous. I'm like, this is great.
1AML, the ESCO plates. If you drive anything in Germany, yes, I know this feeling very well. Just like, I remember the first time I turned up in Zuffenhausen to drive a Porsche with ESCO. I was like, no way.
It's so sad, isn't it? But I'm like, but that's the thing. It's a thing for both of us. We've just come into it because of ultimately, just car geeks.
Yeah, having fun with it.
Insufferable car geeks.
So, having fun with it, we should probably get this out on the road if that's all right.
We should.
Go have some fun. Go enjoy it for a little drive around the block.
Absolutely. Would you like to look at your little gift item?
Oh, yes. So, I gather you have something here too.
I do. I was re-watching the interview that Tim did with Johnny Smith of the Late Break show, formerly Fifth Gear, and I was reminded that, like myself, he loves not just cars, but cameras also. But most of the stuff he deals with, same as for me, is all very new school, fancy stuff. So I thought I'd bring him a little bit of very old school stuff. So
that's cool.
A small gift from me to you.
That's cool. Okay, so this is definitely something I don't know.
So this is a nice piece of Austrian engineering for you.
Okay.
So this is a Moviecam magazine. Specifically, it's a Steadicam mag from a Moviecam compact. So they're shaped in a different way, so you kind of know what this does. You will have all seen this from films. So the film itself goes in there, and I know you love your engineering. It's a clever piece of engineering. So to make this as small as it can, your big reel of film moves, and the reason it does this is when you're on a Steadicam, balance is really important.
Yep.
So this sits like so it's completely vertical.
Gotcha.
These were about 10 grand a piece.
Wow.
I now use them as doorstops.
Industry change, time change.
There's that.
Well, this will proudly be on display here, thank you.
And there is also this.
Ah, perfect.
And genuine, I'm afraid empty, tin of film from, the worst, but a Bourne movie.
That's really cool.
That's real.
That's pretty nice of you.
Yeah, that's
Thank
okay.
you.
There's a stack of them. It seems nobody liked Bourne 5. So I actually
I remember if I've seen Bourne 5, but the early ones were good.
The early ones were great, and at the time I got this, I didn't know whether this was actually going to be any good. So I pinched a load of them. I also pinched a stack of ones from Star Wars: The Force Awakens, but unfortunately those turned out to be quite popular back in the day. So yeah,
oh, awesome.
That's for you as well. So.
That's very kind of you. Thank you so much.
No trouble.
As everyone watching knows, the end game here in the garage is going to be to have some amazing displays, and everything tells a story, and these will definitely tell the story of your visit today. So thank you very much.
Super. My pleasure.
So right, let's get the F12 out and go have some fun with it. I guess it's time to enjoy some V12.
Always time to enjoy V12.
It's definitely time to enjoy a V12. And I tell you what, I actually really quite like this interior. I wouldn't normally be brave enough to have red carpets.
No, it works though.
It works.
It works.
Well, and with the red shelf behind.
Yeah.
Hard for you to see when you're driving, but red contrast stitching on the Crema. It's a very iconic Ferrari specification.
Yeah, it's traditional.
But it suits that whole, Ferrari front mid V12, lovely car, effortless for miles. I mean, I feel that even just sitting in the passenger seat here.
Oh yeah, I've taken a lot of people out in this and the 550. Many of them have not been out in a Ferrari before.
Yeah.
And the one thing that always comes back to me is they're surprised how comfortable and usable it is.
Yeah.
Particularly your Porsche customers. A lot of the sportier 911s and so on are actually quite firm.
Yes.
And this is really comfy.
No, this is why you've done 5,000 miles in it in no time at all, because you can just drive it.
Yeah.
It's an easy misconception. I mean, in the F12, you've got plenty of space back there.
Yeah.
If you need to take some stuff with you or go to the shops or whatever, you actually can.
So fun fact, I think the new Electra's boot space is like about 400 odd litres.
Yeah.
This is 500 with the divider out. It's mad.
Well, there we go.
Yeah, there you go. Practical consumer advice.
More luggage space in a two-seat, but more luggage space in a GT Ferrari than in a practical SUV.
I think they made the smart decision. Like, I love stuff like the Aston Vanquish, the second one in particular, the DBS, but it always shocked me, particularly with the DBS, for a GT, how little boot space they have.
No, it's completely true. Obviously I have the DBS, and it's not a hatch, it's a
lip
boot,
isn't it?
And it's an awkward entry because it's quite narrow between the tail lights. It's part of the nice pretty design, but it's an awkward entry and you can't really fit all that much in there.
No.
It's something I particularly like about my AMG GTs because they have the hatch. You know, it's a setup a bit like this, front mid-engine, lovely, brilliant cars to drive, very sporty, dynamic GTs, but they also happen to have so much space behind you that whatever you want to use the car for, you actually can.
Yeah.
And it's something that Ferrari have done quite well, it has to be said, with the 812 GTS.
Yes.
The GTS actually has quite a decent sized boot.
It does. I was surprised.
Like that.
Have you ever driven a Maserati Gran Cabrio?
I have, yes.
The boot on those, I fell about laughing.
So, a long time back, I used to have an Audi S5 Cabriolet.
Oh yeah.
4-seat convertible, and I really wanted to upgrade it to a Gran Cabrio.
Mm-hmm.
You can imagine that would be a
like big step up.
A step up, but of the same kind of class of car. And yeah, I remember when I first saw the boot of one, I was like, well, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
Back to the drawing board.
I struggled to get my tripod in it. Like the tripod went in, and I was like, great, I'm now putting stuff on the seats. It was baffling. I think, you know, you're right. One of the things I really like about the Ferraris, and what has in the past put me off many of the Lamborghinis and also the R8, is, of course, it's the same problem for you and me. Like, well, this car's boot is sort of nearly full, and that's just with my 3 essential bags. You know, tripod, my camera bag, and my mounts bag, and that's it. So that's my like 0 point. So if I'm going to go away, that's the starting point, and I've then got to add stuff on top of that. Yeah. So having a big boot, actually, I really do appreciate.
Yeah,
like SF90, not the car for me.
Well, that's why I had a Lasso that followed me on my trip.
Yeah.
No, I know exactly what you mean about the starting point. I actually did a 3-week trip with my R8 Spider back in 2013.
Oh.
100 litres up front. 3 weeks, 2 people in the car. Yep. We were shoving dirty clothes around the seats, behind the seats, under the seats, anywhere to try and get everything in.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, it's quite rewarding when you've made it work. When you get to the other end and you've been like, yep, we managed somehow.
Yeah, it's a sense of achievement.
Yes. The only difficulty is you pick up extra stuff along the way, and then all of a sudden it's like, where's this gonna go? Yeah,
I actually made that mistake. I'd been doing tours in Europe for quite a few years, so every couple of years we go away with my mother. We took a 911 996 one year, Z4M Coupe a couple of years later, which again, great car to tour around Europe in. And then I did a holiday to America, and I did the natural thing, rented, you know, V6 Mustang convertible, you know, because it's America. Yeah. And I kind of forgot that I had to bring all this stuff home. So I was driving from LA up to San Francisco, and I suddenly realized the boot was full, the back seats had stuff on, and the passenger seat had a bag on it as well. And so it was a quick visit to Staples to go and buy like a box, a sellotape thing, and some labels to then send a load of stuff home.
That's funny.
So my mother had a sort of delivery of like dirty socks and wine and things just randomly turn up from America.
Oh well. It's half of the fun. It's why you remember those occasions, right?
Oh, of course, of course. You know, for me, I'm sure it's very similar for you. The thing with the cars is they don't change my mood or anything like that, but they can definitely enhance it. You know, a car is not the reason I always do something, but by having the right car for the journey, it makes it lifts it from great to just unforgettable. Completely agree with that.
It's swap time.
Let's go.
Thank you for trusting me with your lovely machine.
Well, you've got experience.
Hopefully know what I'm doing. Hopefully got this one. All right, here we are, F12. Now, you actually mentioned off camera, accurately so, that I haven't really spent much time in an F12.
No, I was surprised.
I've done a lot of miles in my FF and my 2 Lassos and even in 812s, but I spent very little time in the F12 Berlinetta. I think I've only driven one once very briefly around Beverly Hills, Los Angeles, so it wasn't a very dynamic drive.
No.
Kind of.
Pretty place to be, but yeah, not a great test route. I think the F12 as well, I think it maybe suffered a little bit from the fact that, you know, I think this is a 2013 car. Yeah. So when these were a new thing, you know, I mean, you would have probably been one of the sort of biggest car YouTubers then. You were on, what, 120,000 subs or so?
Probably something
that
like
was
that.
In the 5th gear video, you're on 120k. Yeah. So I don't think car YouTubers had got to the point where they could afford to buy the cars that they were spotting yet.
No, true.
And by the time they had the money, I wonder whether this was maybe a little bit old hat already, or still just a little bit unattainable. And then people tended to buy the Lambos and stuff like that. But I think people bought them more later. So I know a lot of other YouTubers have bought them later.
Yeah. Gosh. It's awesome, isn't it?
It is. It really is.
Gosh, it's nice. Yeah, it's very nice. I'm going to pop it into race if you don't mind, just for that.
No.
Oh, the shift.
Yeah. That's what race mode does. Yeah. It doesn't hang about.
No, it doesn't. What I'm interested is what this is like having driven the 812 so many times, because it actually feels remarkably close to that on the normal driving.
The thing that to me, again from memory, the only 812 I've driven thus far is the GTS.
Yeah.
The big difference to me is the steering. So this has still got the hydraulic steering.
Yeah.
And it's got more weighty, it's more natural, still quick.
Unfortunately, we're not going to discover that it's quick. Oh, the sound is glorious. The sound is absolute glory.
And fun fact, some of it's actually piped into here.
Is it in here?
Yep, a little bit from the intake.
Clever. All these sneaky techniques, hey?
Yeah. But I don't mind that because it's real noise.
Yeah, it's not through the speakers where it sounds oddly fake, like in the AMGs and the M cars.
Yeah.
Where you're like, why is the sound? Yeah.
Yeah.
A bit artificial.
Well, I drove a Genesis the other day, and the enhanced engine noise makes it sound like something from the Jetsons.
Okay.
Yeah. Usually it's some sort of gruff engine note, and this is just like a woo. You're like, what is that sound? Like that's not an engine I know.
Fun. Well, I guess people are having to come up with new ideas and make it work somehow.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this is just from the old days where they could just make it kind of sound like they wanted to. So there's one of my issues with the 550. It just doesn't sound as great as I would like it to. It's a very muted car. It was one of the criticisms of it at the time. They fixed that later. I think they realised people do want a slightly more vocal car. With this, I think they've got the blend just right. We can sit here now on the motorway, which is a fairly rough patch of road as well, and have a decent conversation, but when you want it to make noise, it makes a great noise.
As we can experience a little bit of now, hold the downshift pedal and get all those... I love the way it does that.
Someone asked me whether this does that, and now I know the answer, so I'm glad you've done that. Because does this do that? And I was like, I don't know, I think so, maybe.
But then you take second gear, the road opens up.
It just does the business, doesn't it? Like if you don't, let's be honest, a car like this, if it doesn't make you smile and laugh like an idiot, like just sell it, just give up, just return it, take it back. Like there's no point.
It's actually quite interesting to consider it against the Lusso, because the Lusso obviously is newer, but a very similar underlying platform to this, but being a 4-seater, it's less dynamic, let's say, and you can feel the steering difference. The steering in here, as you said, has more weight to it. It feels more slightly better, connected to the action, to what's going on. But at the end of the day, it's similar kind of power, similar kind of thing. Yeah, it just feels nice. The only problem is you get to the speed limit too quickly.
You do, you really do. And it took me a long time to sort of build the confidence with this. Part of it was because I picked it up in February, and you're like, yes, I know the traction control is there, yes, I know it's very smart, but also it's 740 horsepower and rear-wheel drive, But the thing that really impressed me and amazed me, when I drove it first time round, it was on its original P0s. It was terrifying. I would have struggled getting it, honestly, into your place without it going kind of sideways.
So, 6 or 7 year old tyres?
They were old tyres. And they still had tread on them, but they were just old.
The rubber has gone by then.
And we suspected at the time that was an issue. The owner very shortly after the review changed them for the PS4S as it's now got on, and it grips now better in the wet than it did then in the dry.
Completely. I've had enough experience with old tyres that I think as power numbers go up, people still don't have the appreciation for how important it is.
Yes.
It makes a big difference.
Oh yeah, no, it is a bugbear of mine, the number of exotic cars out there on tyres that are so old they could vote. And when I filmed the video you were talking about with this up in Scotland, or Hertfordshire, I think it's 20 miles from here, it was no warmer than 2 degrees, I think, the day we did the drive-bys, and it was about 4 degrees the second day, and I could drive the car and have fun.
Yeah.
Which you think 700 horsepower car, it's snowing, you're like, it should be misery. And there are a lot of old cars I know where, yeah, probably like the CLK Black that I drove, like, yeah, it probably would have been misery, but not this.
I love just holding the downshift paddle, but it only does it down second, by the way. It doesn't.
Not all the way. That's probably for the best.
Nearly down to a standstill. I guess it would just be 2.
Yeah, too much. It can pull second quite fine, so.
The way you see the arches up over the wheels, almost a little bit akin to a mid-engined car.
Yeah.
It gives you that sense of, like, prowess at the front, you know, sporty intent, like it's ready to pounce, it's ready to attack.
Yeah.
And then you're kind of wondering there, the air goes and tucks in down.
Yeah. And you honestly, like, you know, you and I both drive a lot of different cars, but I completely screwed up on about the second day I had this. I completely misjudged how long that bonnet is. Really? And I went and parked it, and there was a little, like, just like muddy verge, and I just totally drove the car into the verge. Oh, no. And I was like, oh no, you idiot. You know, great. Yeah. How much is a new splitter for an F12? Luckily, it had rained so hard the day before, the verge was just mush. Okay. And there was a perfect imprint of an F12 splitter in it.
Sorry, I stopped the story for a moment there.
No, never apologise for that.
So we can do it again, yeah?
Yep.
What a phenomenal sound. Every single time I drive a V12 equipped Ferrari, I'm just kind of in awe at the glory of it, and just the fact that it exists.
Would you like a window down, sir?
I think we need some windows slightly down.
Paul Wallace's playground.
Supercars of London exhaust expert.
Yeah, it's a bit funny. Yeah, it's a Ferrari. I spent a long time making it sound like that, but the window switches, they didn't spend very much time at all.
Well, you know, probably been used a little bit more than most. This car's done a fair few miles.
Oh yeah, it's on 27,500 now.
Pretty good going.
Yeah, it's basically a taxi in Ferrari terms.
Yes, one of the highest mileage ones out there. I do always wonder, you know, how many people are there that do massive miles in these kind of things?
Yes, there are. In fact, my 550 is on 102. Yeah.
Wow.
The first owner did 60,000 miles in 3 years.
Really?
Yep.
That's nearly double the average UK mileage a year.
Yep.
Wow.
It's incredible. One of the reasons I bought the car, because also, actually, half that car's mileage, it would have been under the warranty period anyway, so if anything had broken, it would have just been fixed. And I think he had, I did a little bit of digging, I think he owned a chain of sort of holiday park type things.
Okay.
And so I imagine the only way you put that many miles on any car is motorway stuff.
Yes.
So I think he bought a 550 for 150 odd grand in 1999, and he just drove it up and down the country constantly. And every now and again, it's very sad, but I'll confess to it, I'll put absolute 90s on the radio.
Really?
And I'll just sit there and I'll pretend that I'm him, you know, sort of going off to my next big business meeting.
Yeah.
And the car is so effortless and fantastic on the motorway. Very different in character to this.
I was about to ask, if you had to pick one of them between 550 and F12.
Oh, now that's unfair. I think if you said, do you want to pick a car, I would probably pick the F12 just for the usability, the fact it's a little bit more modern, you know, it's exciting, you know. And when I'm just doing a normal journey, I can hit the auto button, it can just do everything for me, it's okay. But 550, that is proper childhood dream material, you know. Yeah. Ever since Jeremy Clarkson declared it the best handling car of all time, you know, on that video, as much as it might have been accurate or not, we don't know. I always wanted one. To me, it's the era of Ferrari. You know, we're a similar age, so it's kind of like, you know, who's your favourite Bond? You're like, well, generally it's just the one you grew up with. You know?
Yes, true,
and so for me, you know, it's got to have the 3 dials up here. You know, it's got to have the analog dash. You know, it's got to be that old school feel. You know, you open the door on that car and you're like, yeah, this is a different type of thing. You know, 599, totally different car. You know, you can say like a 430, like it's, again, very different era of Ferrari. And again, this, you know, a lot of people suspected that, you know, having the 2, I would feel there's too much crossover. Ignoring the fact I haven't seen the 550 during the time I've owned this.
But they're quite different. I mean, gearbox alone,
yeah,
it makes it a different feel.
Yes, and the manual box is quite special.
Yeah. I mean, they're both special. As DCTs go, this is phenomenal.
Yes, it's very dim-witted around town. It's a little bit silly. It doesn't know what it's doing. You know, your modern Porsche PDK box is much better at being an auto box, but this does a good enough job. Like, it's a world away from the old F1 boxes. You know?
Yes. Yeah. But just the full rev, upshift snaps, downshifting through the gears.
I also like, and you sort of do get a little bit of it from in the cabin. You know, when you get that full bore upshift, you get 1 crack. Like, that's it. You know, that's all you need.
Pop, 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 pop.
Yes. Yeah, like when I had the Huracan on review, you know, it does it, and it's also it's the synthesized VAG, you know, like you could set your watch by it, you know, and also half the time it does it, I don't feel like I've earned it, you know. Whereas with this, I'm like, no, you've got to have your foot down, you've got to have it in the right place. Same with the Scuderia, you know, and the old cars, the 599 and that sort of stuff. If you want the proper shift, you've got to have your foot in, you've got to be at a set RPM, like, and then you'll get what the gearbox can do. Otherwise, the rest of the time it'll just be difficult.
Yeah, well, fabulous. Very much enjoyed driving this, so thank you.
Oh no,
for the opportunity to experience the F12.
Oh, my pleasure. It's a car to be shared.
That was awesome. Thank you very much for the drive.
Pleasure.
I mean, I think we've said it enough while we've been on the road. It's a very special car. It's a very special car for you as well. But I think that Ferrari just have this ability of turning loads of the cars that they've made into spectacular things to drive.
Absolutely.
And I hadn't really, I mean, that's now the most time I've ever spent in an F12 Berlinetta. I've driven TDFs a few times. But even this, steering, engine, gearbox, sound, noise, feel, looks, it's a fabulous looking car. Might need a little bit of work to tidy it up. He talks about that a bit.
That's just paint.
Just paint, nice and easy to resolve. But yeah, super enjoyed that. So thank you very much for coming down. Appreciate it a lot. Thank you for the drive.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, guys, do go check out JayEmm's channel if you'd like to see some really in-depth things with all sorts of different cars, really, and a bit more of the ownership of this. Your 550, other cars soon on the horizon that we can't tell you about right now. But that's it for this time. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you again very soon. Cheers.